Well, I have another carefully prepared talk, which I'm prepared to step away from for a minute, because on the drive in, I heard a story that ties in so beautifully with what I'm about to speak about. My title being, What's It All About? Oddly enough, the inspiration for the topic came from a discussion amongst the ministers that I communicate with regularly during the week around a memorial service for someone who had taken their own life. And the collective conclusion was that how a person died is far less important than how they lived. You see, even the most despondent persons usually do have people who care about them and whom they've influenced in positive ways through their life. And stepping away from that for just a moment, the story I heard on the radio coming in, maybe some of you heard it too driving in, because it was just a little while ago, was about the immigration raids that took place, I believe it was in Mississippi or Alabama, I forget where, but a few weeks ago, when several dozen illegal immigrants were rounded up and separated from their families for a while. And the story was about the community itself and how it had reacted to this entire event, because the county in which the poultry plant resides in is heavily Republican county. It went 77% for Trump in the last election. And most of the people really thought that immigration was a serious problem and that there were criminals that needed to be rounded up, and they were happy to see the action when it took place, until they realized that the 97 people arrested were their neighbors, and their children went to school with their children, and that they weren't drug dealers, they weren't rapists, they were people that got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and went to work like everybody else, and sometimes worked 2 or 3 jobs to support their families. And over the weeks that have passed, these very conservative people decided that that didn't represent who they were. And they joined together through their own churches, mostly, and started collecting money, and have bailed out a lot of the people that were arrested, so that even though the law is going to take its course, and some of them probably will be deported at the end of the day, they at least get to be with their families while this is happening. And they have money to put food on their tables because they can't go back to work. And the community decided that it wasn't defined by what everybody thought about them and what they originally thought about the people who were being detained, that they were really all good people. And I only bring that in because that's sort of what it's all about, isn't it? It's living a life that at the end of the day we can be proud of. That we can say, okay, I screwed up a few times, but in the overall, if we grade on the curve, we're going to be all right. We don't have a whole lot to be sorry about. In fact, Holmes writes in the Science of Mind textbook that, he says, it is not necessary if we should pass on tonight that anyone should ever remember that we have ever lived. All that means anything is that while we live, we live. And wherever we go from here, we shall keep on living. So there's 2 important points there. Number 1, he's giving us the clue that what happens after this life is unknown to us, but there is something. So for those of you that are asked, does the science of mind believe in life after death? Well, the truth of the matter is, science of mind doesn't believe in death. You'll frequently hear the term transition. And that simply means this chapter is closing and the next chapter is opening. And we don't get to know what the next chapter is until we get there. So living in this world is a challenge worthy of a God. And for that reason, we humans are created in God's image. If you're uncomfortable with the term God, bear with me. We do have other names for it, and you're free to choose. Science of Mind teaches that the God power, or spirit as we frequently call it, the loving energy behind everything, that this power is infinite, without beginning and without an end. This forms the basis of our personal empowerment. We are formed from the infinite and exist within the infinite. We are an individualization of the infinite, blessed, or is it cursed, with free choice. When Holmes reminds us that we must live in this life, he's highlighting that the nature of spirit is love, joy, beauty, creativity, and prosperity. I didn't mention health because it kind of folds into those other things. If we have all those other things, if we have joy and creativity and prosperity, health is a foregone conclusion. Like spirit, we are builders. We have to be, because spirit is a builder. That's all it can do, is build stuff. It can't destroy anything. It just keeps building. What does it build? It builds what we believe we need. And it builds it for us without asking us why. Doesn't ask us how much it's going to cost. Doesn't ask us when we'd like the project to be finished. Because we learn through our education in the science of mind that the only minute that matters is this one. Right here and right now. All the mistakes we've made in the past don't matter. Spirit has a very short memory. I like to say I'm blessed with an extremely short memory. I don't carry grudges for very long. Used to carry them around, had a big satchel, carried them around all the time. Pelican case, indestructible. All my regrets, all of my mistakes were right there. But eventually, as I began to awaken into this teaching, and teachers taught me that I could be loved for who I am right now, and not to worry about what happened yesterday, I think I left it in a bus station someplace. And I don't remember which one, and I don't care. So we build. We build things. We build relationships. We build societies. We love each other. We love ourselves. We love our neighbors and our classmates and our countrymen. We exist in joy. When we exist in joy, we are being true to our spiritual nature. When we see beauty in everything, we are being true to our spiritual nature. Our creative endeavors are a monument to our spiritual nature. Prosperity embraces us, begging for recognition. How many times have you thought you were poor? Probably because you were trying to define prosperity. Now, I admit I'm probably one of the biggest offenders when I didn't admit that I probably didn't set my sights high enough sometimes. But I've always known for myself that there was a level in life to which I would never go below. I've always been comfortable. I've never been monetarily rich, but I've always been comfortable. And trust me, that has been an interesting ride sometimes. But where else have I been prosperous? I've always had people around me who loved me. I've always had the ability to look at any situation I found myself in and say, oh, this is fun. This is exciting. This could kill me, but I'm going to get through it. I'm fine. And that is prosperity, folks. That is recognizing that there is good around you, even when others might define it differently. If we recognize a one-room cabin in the northern woods of Maine in the dead of winter, a lot of people wouldn't think that is a prosperous surrounding. But when you consider that the woodshed is full, the stove is working, and the fire in the fireplace isn't spreading to the rest of the cabin, that's a very prosperous existence. And that was a fun winter because I got to learn things that I knew, but I didn't know I knew, and got to see things in a way that I never would have seen them if I had electric lights and running water and all of the other things that we tend to take for granted in our modern existence. Holmes reminds us again that it is a practitioner's duty to uncover false ideas of life and replace them with the truth. Each of us is a practitioner in this life. Yes, we have a titled practitioner in our teaching, a person who can do treatment, prayer treatment work with you and for you. However, each of us is a practitioner in our own life. Each of us has the ability to speak directly to this God power, primarily because we're only talking to ourselves when we do. It is from within. It is not a higher power looking down on us from on high and making judgments. It is simply that power flowing through us. We can speak to ourselves and remind ourselves that yes, we do have this power. Yes, we are part of this infinite joy. We are part of this loving universe. And we get to direct our own experience. Each of us has the duty to uncover the false ideas that have led us astray and shine a light of truth into the shadows and simply bring that power back to the surface and enjoy what's going on around us. When we find ourselves doubting our own importance, our own value, it is our duty to release those false ideas and let the truth shine through. We have to do that for ourselves. We can get help as ministers. Azia and I are here to help you with that. As practitioners, we can work with you and help you through some of those tougher spots sometimes, because it's hard to remember sometimes when you're up to your ass in alligators that you're there to drain the swamp. So let us help you with that. But remember, you can help yourself as well. You don't need a middleman to talk with God. God is within you all the time, just waiting for a little direction. You've heard me say it before in this room and others. Spirit is dumb as a post. Has all the power that you can imagine, but doesn't know what to do with it until you tell it. So don't be afraid to ask. When others speak poorly about us, it is our duty to love them. See the beauty in their words and remember that what others think of us is none of our business. That is to say that criticism can be helpful. It hurts. Nobody likes to be reminded that they might be wrong. But writers have editors who provide guidance and encouragement. Actors have directors who weave their talents into entertainment. It is helpful to listen to criticisms and search them for value, because there's always a kernel of truth in the things that people are saying. But usually our defensive mechanisms, our defensive instincts kick in, don't they? And what's the first thing we do? We take that stance and we go, well, wait a minute, I'm not wrong. I can't possibly be wrong. And now I'm going to tell you why I'm not wrong and why you are. And what have we done? We have chosen to not be joyous. We've chosen not to see beauty. We have chosen to be combative. And that wasn't on that list I read earlier of what spirit is. But with our free choice, we can go there. And we can stay there as long as we like. But it doesn't help. Mother always said, count to 10 before reacting. Ever hear that? This wise advice gives us time to remember who we are, to remember that we are here to live in joy. Gives us time to take in what was said and go, okay, that hurt. I don't really like that, but I'll look at it later maybe. But right now I don't need to engage on that level. Remembering again that the energy to solve a problem is never the same energy that causes the problem. So let's try to find a different place to come from. Find the kernel of truth in those misspoken words and grow from the experience. Life is short and filled with opportunity to choose misery over love. We all know people who criticize everything. Their only joy seems to come from sharing their misery. This is not living. It's a waste of time. In California, the foothills are golden brown for much of the year and often for years at a time. Most people drive past them without a second glance. Then one day it rains and rains and rains. Soon the hills explode in color as the wildflowers emerge from their patient hibernation, and thousands flock just to see the miracle that has been underfoot all along. The colors go for miles: reds, whites, blues, greens. It's just, you could have driven by there yesterday, brown, and today an explosion of color. You know, the local TV stations send their cameras out to see it because the reporters are new in town and haven't seen it before. They can't get over it. The critics write of the brown hills as useless wasteland, something to be passed over as quickly as possible. The practitioner knows instinctively that the beauty has been there all along and does everything in their power to encourage the rain, knowing when all the elements are in place, nature can only create what it is programmed to create. Spirit can only create what it's programmed to create. It can only create joy and beauty and love because that's what it is programmed to create. It doesn't have free will itself. It can only create in that parameter. If we choose ugliness, it will happily and lovingly create ugliness for us. Couldn't care less itself. It doesn't have a judgment bone in its existence. As practitioners in life, we know instinctively and release automatically anything unlike spirit from our thinking and allow the true beauty of life to be revealed. I'm here to promise you that if you're new to this teaching, or if you've just been in it for a while and you know, it's different from the way you were raised, so maybe it's a bit of a challenge to absorb it as purely as someone who, to me it came instinctively. It was something I always knew to be true, and I struggled with traditional teachings because I was the one in the back who would always go, you know, preacher, I like what you're saying, but I got a question. And then they'd say, maybe you need to be somewhere else because this is the way it is, and that's the way it is. And I go, you're absolutely right. I need to be someplace else. So I've always known instinctively, and the intellectual curiosity of people, I think, that come to this teaching, the science of mind, they probably always have been intuitive to a certain extent, but they've had, you know, the dogma drilled into them somewhere, or maybe they've had no formal teaching at all and they just didn't realize that there was kind of a science to it. So knowing it instinctively allows you to just kind of automatically release that baggage, to just get on the bus and leave the bag behind. If you're into it a little more intellectually, you kind of have to think your way through it sometimes, and maybe you struggle with it a little bit. You go for a while kind of getting into your routine of and then coming back, and then eventually you go, oh, wait a minute, I read this in the Science of Mind textbook or in one of the many other books that supports this subject matter, and you go, wait, yeah, that's right, I have a choice here, don't I? I can do something different, and I can do it right now. I don't have to be in this misery all the time. I can let that go and see the beauty. Yeah, I don't really care for that criticism, but you know, the fact that they said it, tells me there might be something there worth looking at. Maybe I should take another look at my own belief and see if there's an adjustment I can make. I don't have to admit they're right. I just have to change course a little bit. So, although it was a human tragedy that inspired this topic today, it turns out that dancing with life, actively courting spirit in our experience, reaching in and pulling out a handful of joy and sharing it with everyone, that's what it's all about. So thank you.